Karibu sana to this very revealing show today. You see, many Kenyans are still a little confused. They don't understand what all the fuss is about concerning the behavior of politicians. Our politicians have always behaved like this. Therefore, it is just business as usual. No, it isn't. And this show of mine today makes that very clear. You will understand why we have entered a place that we should never even come near to that place ever again. And as usual, I present solid evidence and proof without fear or favor of what I'm saying. It is definitely a show to look forward to. Now, allow me also to inform you that my latest very hot weekly intelligence briefings, number 47, is out. And it gives you a very clear picture of what is going on in the political backrooms. Even as we see what we are seeing unfold. You can't miss it. You just can't. Especially because of the things that are about to happen. Subscribers, look out for it in your inbox. It takes a couple of hours to get to everybody. Just be patient. It'll hit your inbox anytime, very soon. And if you're not yet a subscriber, today is the last day of our special offer. Just rush. Okay, the special offer, as you see on your screens right now, is $39.99 for life membership to both Club 1999 and weekly intelligence briefings, or Kenya shillings 3,999. Just send a blank email to the email address umissedthis@gmail.com and you'll get an immediate, instant, automated response giving you full payment details. Go for it. I highly recommend it. Right. Let us get on with our show today. Our motto kama Basi show. Karibu sana. Let me start today's show by appreciating my many friends here in Kumekucha who are supporters of the Deputy President. I celebrate them today because even though they lean to one side of the political divide, they're here to understand what is happening in the country politically. And I don't love them less just because they support a side of the political divide that I personally believe is not good for Kenya. I don't love them less. Indeed, I appreciate them even more. That nice lady called Memos, or who calls herself Memos, Generali, and many others. Friends, understanding something has so many advantages. And that is why I'm always very curious. I always go to great lengths to understand. Understanding is not only for smart people. In fact, in most instances, smart people miss it. And the slower people catch it because they pay more attention, since they know they're a little slower. While the arrogance of the super smart is often their undoing. And they end up missing things that are in plain sight. Anyway, I am sure most of you would like to hear latest confirmations confirming my previous video on what really went down in Kisii. Simba Arati drama, manenos. Now, sample the following. Raila Odinga, at that same function, spoke before William Samoei Ruto. And after he spoke, he left the function. Meaning he didn't get a chance to take in Ruto's speech. Simba Arati left with him, and a large entourage that was in that function. The former Prime Minister was greeted by a huge crowd outside. And they made their way to Kisii town, where there was an even larger crowd waiting, which he then addressed. My point is, on social media, there's still confusion. Who is more popular in Kisii? Maybe the hecklers were not planted. They were genuine Deputy President William Samoei Ruto supporters. There's still that confusion. However, to the people on the ground, there is absolutely no confusion as to who out of the two candidates is the most popular. And the plan to embarrass Raila Odinga, by having William Ruto cheered wildly, more wildly as he made his speech. The plan to have William Ruto dress down the former Prime Minister failed. And it failed simply because Raila Odinga walked out. He walked out of the trap that had been set for him, which initially walked straight into. The trap were the elaborate arrangements, including sitting arrangements, large crowd in support of the Deputy President, etc., etc. Seated at the front, right next to the podium, while supporters of the former Prime Minister were put in a faraway tent, those kind of arrangements. And that is normal, at least in Kenyan politics. But what all this tells us is that what I said in a previous video covering this event was absolutely correct. Our reading of the situation on the ground was spot on. Now, those who are following politics in the year 1992 must be sitting up and saying to themselves, wow, this sounds familiar. We have seen this before in our country. But of course, the vast majority of us here were not following politics in 1992. Some of us were not even around. Some of us were not yet even an idea. I'm laughing, but there's no shame in that. We don't choose where or when to be born. So there's absolutely nothing to brag about it and nothing to put down somebody else about it. But let me quickly bring up to speed those who are not around for whatever reason. Of course, some were very old, but they were probably based in a foreign country far away and not following local politics. Now, in 1992, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi faced his very first competitive election. Oh yes, you heard me right. Despite the fact that he had been in politics for decades, he had never been involved in the rough and tumble of competitive, fiercely competitive politics for any seat. He had been handpicked by the colonialists to represent the Rift Valley after a medical doctor who was doing that job before him was dismissed for drinking on the job. He was an alcoholic. He couldn't do his job properly. And when the first Legislative Council elections came, Moi had done such a good job of crisscrossing the vast Rift Valley, listening to people on the ground, addressing their problems right on the ground, that he had no opponent. In other words, that election was a walkover for him, as was the election leading to independence. And shortly after that, he became vice president. In those days, you would not dream of opposing a vice president in an election for a parliamentary seat. How? And then when Jomo Kenyatta passed on, he became president. And so his very first competitive election was for the highest office in the land. Now at around that time, by a stroke of fate, I happened to be very close to a person who was bang in the middle of the president's most important think tank. And we met and became good friends just because our wives were very close. Yeah. But don't get me wrong, he never sat me down and told me, this is what we discussed, this is what we're planning, etc., etc. No. All that was confidential. But I dare add, he often said more than he intended to say. And I filled in the blanks. So I had a very good picture of what was going on. And there were some entrepreneurs, hanging around close to the Moi government, who were part of cartels, who saw an opportunity. Indeed, my friend, was very worried about this group. He felt, quite rightly so, that these people just wanted to make money out of Kanu, and they didn't care whether Moi got re-elected or not. And therefore, my friend did not like, in fact, he greatly loathed the group that came up as a result of this greed, by these people hanging around Kanu. The group known as Youth For Kanu 92. And he hated it even more, that they were forced, including himself, to give these people, secrets from the Kanu rulebook. Political secrets, dirty politics secrets. Youth For Kanu members, including the Deputy President William Samoei Ruto, were given a crash course on Kanu dirty tactics. Now in 1992, Moi was very unpopular countrywide. And so it was very clear right from the onset that the only way Moi would see State House again would be by rigging the election. However, Moi was a very calculating, very paranoid man. He wanted, even as he rigged the election, to create the perception that he was still popular in many parts of the country, or right across the country. And this is very important to note. The main objective in Moi's campaign in 1992 was not to win votes. That was an objective, number two. But the number one objective was to create the perception countrywide that he was popular. That was much more important than getting votes, which he was going to rig anyway. And to summarize Kanu's tactic, main tactic from the rule book, it was simply, if you can't bribe them, maim them. Kama pesa imwagiki, mwaga fujo. And those who have read my book on the clashes, Let the Blood Flow, will know that this is the period in Kenyan history that land clashes were invented. Land clashes in the Rift Valley. And they will also know that the very first arrows, bows and arrows, used in the 1991-1992 land clashes were imported from a far eastern country by, wait for this one, the office of the president. And we got this information from an insider some years later, a man who was working in the office of the president, Burudi Nabwera, who revealed it to Kenyans, shocked Kenyans. Now, the stories of the money distributed to win that presidential election are legend. There's a building, which is still there today, called Anniversary Towers. And there are 2 floors of that building filled with cash, cartons of cash, piled up from the floor to the roof. I kid you not. This gives you an idea of the kind of printing of money that went down at that period, so that the country suffered hugely. There was runaway inflation after 1991, which we have never recovered from to date. Just to give you an example, around 1991, before this mess started, a loaf of bread was about 5 shillings. In 1992, suddenly it was 20 shillings and still rising fast. You see, according to the Kanu rule book, there's no failure. There's no room for losing. It is either you win or you win. And now you can understand Honorable Osoro's words, the South Mugirango legislator in the Kisii incident. He said, kufa kupona, lazima Ruto ataingia State House. Kufa kupona. There is no chapter in the old Kanu rule book about what to do to regroup after you lose an election, because that is not an option. And if you went to Anniversary Towers, the money was not being dished out. Give so-and-so 500,000, give so-and-so 1 million. No. It was give so-and-so 10 cartons. Give so-and-so 100 cartons of cash. 500 shilling notes. That was the highest denomination note at that time. And in those days, 500 bob could do a lot. You could walk into a bar with 500 bob, get very drunk, buy 1 or 2 drinks for friends, and still come out with change, maybe of 200 or 100 and something. I kid you not. And the main objective of this cash was to create perception. This cash would be distributed in a certain area in Kenya. And you would see people start to behave strangely. People would come out and say, Kanu ni mama na baba. Anybody who rejects Kanu is an enemy of the country called Kenya. Sounds familiar at the present time? And because of the cash, we had a lot of defections. People would stand up and announce, huge groups of people, that today we have defected from the opposition back to the ruling party, Kanu. And these people would lie to Kenyans that we have very many supporters and they have all crossed over with us to Kanu. Therefore, Kanu is very popular in this area. And of course, YK92 were gurus in mobilizing youths, mobilizing people to attend meetings, to jeer others, and give the perception that Kanu was popular. Sounds familiar? What about the defections? Do they sound familiar for the present time? Folks, as they say, there is nothing new under the sun. And very important for all of us to note, whatever side of the political divide you belong, this laid the groundwork for the horrors and disaster of 2007 politics. And therefore, if we're going back there in our politics today, we know that we are laying the groundwork for you know what, for history to repeat itself. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, remember to give me a like. If you're not yet a subscriber, be sure that you never miss the valuable content on this channel. Subscribe right away and press the bell button so that you get a notification every time I have a new video out, which sometimes can be more than once in a day. So if you're not a subscriber and are relying on coming here every day, you'll miss out. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.